My name is Aubrey Nolan, and I'm 34 years old. If you walked into my life on an ordinary Saturday morning a few weeks ago, you'd probably have thought I had everything figured out. My bills practically paid themselves. My calendar was color-coded. I owned more highlighters than makeup. My idea of rebellion was drinking coffee after 4 p.m. I used to think that kind of life meant I was safe, untouchable, almost. Like if I followed all the rules, life would sign a contract promising not to blindside me. Then my boyfriend texted, "I don't love you anymore. Consider this goodbye," exactly 2 minutes before my graduation ceremony started. The thing is, this wasn't my first graduation. 5 years earlier, when I was 29, I'd gone back to school for my MBA. That's where I met Logan. I was the one with the color-coded notes and backup flash drives. He was the one who could walk into any room and have 5 new friends before he found a chair. He was getting his master's in communications. He joked that I spoke spreadsheet, and he spoke people. Somehow it worked. We started dating in the first semester. After graduation, we moved in together. We built what I thought was a solid, grown-up life. Joint Costco membership, mutual friends, the same Netflix profile for so long that the algorithm genuinely believed we were one person. The last year changed everything. I decided to pivot my career and go back for another program, a specialized certification in data analytics. It was intense. 12-hour days split between classes, projects, and late nights debugging code until the lines blurred. Weekend study groups that ate my Saturdays. Sunday breaks that were really just time for capstone revisions. Logan said he supported it. He told everyone how proud he was of me. But in our apartment, in the quiet, his support came out sideways. "You're always busy. You never have time for us anymore. Everything revolves around your laptop." I kept telling myself it was temporary. The program was designed to be immersive. That was the point. 18 months of drowning, so I could breathe easier for the next 20 years. I tried to balance everything, but balance is a pretty word for a thing that doesn't really exist. Something always falls. Most days it was me. The capstone project was the worst of it. 3 straight months of building a data pipeline that seemed personally offended by my existence. I was exhausted, jittery from coffee, and clinging to the idea of graduation like a lifeline. Graduation was scheduled for Saturday, May 18th at 2 p.m. I circled that date on my calendar so many times the paper thinned. This was my second degree, a career pivot, proof that the late nights and missed social events meant something. I invited Logan weeks in advance. He promised he'd be there. My parents were flying in. My brother was driving up. For me, it was huge. For us, it was supposed to be a milestone. On Friday night, the air in our apartment felt heavy. I was sitting at the kitchen table going over my speech notes, because of course I'd been selected to speak on behalf of my cohort, while Logan lay on the couch, scrolling on his phone. "Have you picked out what you're wearing tomorrow?" I asked, half teasing, half checking. I feel like my boyfriend of 5 years should not show up in a hoodie. "I haven't decided yet," he said without looking up. "It's tomorrow," I reminded him, trying to keep my voice light. "Just wondering." "I know when it is." The words were flat, dulled at the edges. He didn't say anything else. Around 10, he announced he was tired and went to bed without so much as a kiss on the forehead. I stayed at the table, reading my speech out loud to an audience of dirty coffee mugs. I told myself he was just stressed, that we were both tired, that relationships weren't supposed to be graded on one weird night before graduation. Saturday morning, I woke up at 7. Graduation wasn't until 2, but I had to be on campus by noon for lineup and final checks. I showered, put on the navy suit I'd bought specifically for this day, and made coffee. The kind of morning where adrenaline does most of the work for you. Logan was still asleep when I stepped out of the bathroom, hair damp, blazer draped over the back of a chair. He emerged around 9:30 in the same t-shirt he'd tossed on the floor the night before. "You're up early," he said. "Big day, remember?" I tried to smile. "Right, your thing." "My graduation," I said, a little sharper than I meant to. "Yeah, that's what I meant." Something in his tone scraped against my nerves, but I swallowed it down. Not today. Today was supposed to be about achievement and relief and my mom crying in the second row. I made breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, fruit. He ate in silence, thumb scrolling, face lit by a screen that apparently had more to say to him than I did. I tried. I asked about his week, if he'd talked to his mom recently, if he wanted to get dinner with my family after the ceremony. Maybe. Yeah. We'll see. One-word answers. Shrugs. A relationship on airplane mode. I need to leave around 11:30, I reminded him as I rinsed dishes. You should probably start getting ready soon. Yeah, okay. At 11:15, he was still in his pajamas, hair unbrushed. No effort that suggested he was planning to celebrate the culmination of 18 brutal, obsessive months of my life. Hey, we need to leave in 15 minutes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I know you're not dressed. I'm aware. Are you? I hesitated. Are you coming? For the first time that morning, he really looked at me. Not at the suit I'd pressed, or the notes I'd written, or the person who'd spent months living in a haze of exhaustion so we could have a better future. Just at me. I don't know, he said. Do you really need me there? It hit me in the chest. It's my graduation, I said. Of course I need you there. You have your parents, your brother, you'll be fine. That's not the point. You're my boyfriend. This is important to me. He scoffed. Everything is important to you lately. Your classes, your projects, your career. What about what's important to me? There it was, the sentence he'd been building toward for months. This isn't the time for this conversation, I said, checking the clock. I need to leave in 10 minutes. Then leave. My heart pounded in my ears. Are you seriously doing this right now? I'm not doing anything, he said. You're the one who's leaving. I grabbed my keys, my phone, the folder with my speech notes. I took one last look at him standing there in his worn t-shirt, arms crossed, face locked in that blank, stubborn expression I'd once found charming. I need to go, I said quietly. Please, just please be there. We'll see. I left. The drive to campus felt like a tunnel. I kept glancing at my phone on the passenger seat, willing it to light up with a message from him saying he was on his way, that he was sorry, that he'd meet my family in the lobby. Nothing. I arrived at 11:45, checked in, collected my gown and cap, found my spot in the lineup. Everyone around me buzzed with excitement. Photos, hugs, we made it, and I can't believe it's over. I smiled, nodded, laughed in the right places. Inside, something was unraveling quietly, thread by thread. At 1:58 p.m., 2 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to start, my phone buzzed in my hand. Notification, Logan. I swear time slowed down, like my brain knew, before my eyes did, that this was the moment everything changed. I opened the text. I don't love you anymore. Consider this goodbye. I read it once, then again, and again. The processional music started somewhere distant, the first notes of an achievement I'd built my entire year around. A coordinator walked down the line, checking our positions, reminding us when to move. My phone buzzed again. I should have told you sooner. I've been feeling this way for months. I can't keep pretending. Are you okay? Someone behind me asked. I nodded, lips pressed together so tightly they hurt. I had 90 seconds to make a decision. I could call him. I could beg for an explanation. I could ask if this was a joke, a test, some cruel attempt at attention. I could let him detonate the day entirely. Or I could do something I'd never done in 5 years with him. I could choose me. My thumbs moved before my brain finished voting. Understood. One word. No questions, no bargaining, no, can we talk about this? Or, please don't do this today. I silenced my phone, slid it into my pocket. When the line lurched forward, I walked. The ceremony is a blur in my memory now, like someone fast-forwarded through it and only kept the highlights. I heard my name called, walked across the stage, shook hands, accepted my diploma, smiled for the camera, gave my speech on behalf of our cohort, every line I'd rehearsed for weeks spilling out of me on autopilot. People stood. They clapped. A couple of my classmates cried. Inside, I felt nothing, just this strange, hollow calm, like I'd been scraped out and left with an outline of myself. After the ceremony, my parents found me first. My mom's face was blotchy from crying. My dad hugged me so hard my cap nearly fell off. My brother clapped me on the back and made a joke about me being addicted to tuition payments. You were incredible, my mom said. Where's Logan? I want a picture of all of you together. He couldn't make it, I said. Oh no, is everything okay? She asked, the first thread of worry tugging at her words. Yeah, everything's fine. Something came up. It wasn't a good lie, but it was the only one I could manage without dissolving. She studied my face for a moment, like she could see the crack line running through it. You seem off, she said quietly. I'm just tired, I replied. Long day. Dinner was at an Italian place downtown. I don't remember what I ordered. I remember nodding, laughing in the right places, watching my family celebrate me. My dad talked about job prospects. My mom recounted my first day of kindergarten like it happened yesterday. My brother roasted me for color-coding my cereal boxes when we were kids. They were all so proud. It made what had happened feel even more surreal. Like I was living two timelines at once, one where I was a successful, accomplished woman with 2 degrees, and one where I'd just been discarded like an old sweatshirt via text message. By the time I got back to the apartment around 8, the sky was bruised purple and the parking lot lights had flickered on. Logan's car was gone. Inside, most of his stuff was still there, but not all of it. His laptop, his favorite jacket, his phone charger, a couple pairs of shoes. The essentials you grab when you've already decided you're not coming back. He hadn't just broken up with me. He'd planned his exit. I stood in the doorway for a long minute, keys still in my hand, trying to feel something big enough to match what had happened. Nothing came. I put my bag down, took off my heels, hung my suit jacket on the back of a chair. Then I pulled out my phone. Block, block, block. His number, his Instagram, his Facebook, Twitter, every platform where his face had ever popped up with a notification that used to make my chest flutter. Then I opened the shared photo folder. Line 247 photos. Beach trips, birthdays, random Tuesday nights with takeout. The selfie we took in the campus library the first time we studied together. The photo of him pretending to be asleep on the couch with a book open on his chest. Grocery store aisles, parking lot sunsets. One by one they vanished. Delete album. Gone. I moved through the apartment like I was doing inventory. Clothes, toiletries. That ugly decorative pillow he loved and I always said looked like it belonged in a dentist's waiting room. I put everything that was clearly his into boxes and stacked them neatly in the spare room. Labeled, organized, done. When there was nothing left to sort, I lay down on the bed we'd shared and stared at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't replay every conversation we'd ever had looking for clues. I thought about the timestamp on his message. May 18th, 1:58 p.m. 2 minutes before my name was called. He couldn't even wait until after. Couldn't give me an hour, a day, a conversation. 5 years, ended in a text message timed for maximum impact. He thought consider this goodbye would break me. Instead, I realized it was the first boundary I'd ever been offered that I didn't try to negotiate. I considered it, and deep down, even through the numbness, I knew I agreed. Sunday morning, I woke up and for a second, I forgot. There was that half-conscious moment when the world is soft around the edges and your brain hasn't yet downloaded the latest disaster. I stretched, turned to the side, reached instinctively for the weight of another body that wasn't there. My hand met cold sheets and empty space. Everything came rushing back in one nauseating wave. I stared at the ceiling, waited for the tears, the rage, the humiliation. Nothing. It was like someone had reached into my chest, scooped everything out, and left hollow air behind. No grief, no relief, just absence. So I did what I always do when I don't know what else to do. I got up. I made coffee. I worked out. I meal prepped for the week, lining up glass containers like little soldiers in the fridge. I swept crumbs no one cared about but me. I reorganized the spice rack. Routine, structure, control, all the things that had never left me, unlike the man who had. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then some stubborn, curious part of me picked it up. Hello? Aubrey, it's me. His voice hit a nerve I didn't know was still exposed. How did you get this number? I asked, already knowing. I borrowed my friend's phone, he said quickly. You blocked me. Yes, I said, I did. We need to talk. No, I said, surprising even myself with how calm I sounded. We don't. You said what you needed to say yesterday. I accepted it. We're done. You can't just block me and act like I don't exist, he snapped. I can, actually, I replied. You ended things. I'm respecting your decision. I didn't mean we couldn't talk anymore, he said. I meant, what did you think consider this goodbye meant, Logan? Silence crackled between us for a second. I meant we were breaking up, he said, defensive. Not that you'd shut me out completely. That is what a breakup is, I said. We're done. No more contact. But my stuff is still at the apartment. It's packed, I said. Let me know when you want to pick it up, and I'll make sure I'm not here. This is ridiculous, he snapped. You're being childish. I'm being clear, I said. You don't love me anymore. You said goodbye. So, goodbye. I hung up. My hand shook a little as I tapped the screen to block that number too, but it wasn't sadness. It was adrenaline, the kind you get when you walk across a tightrope and realize you didn't fall. Over the next 24 hours, he tried calling from 2 more numbers. I didn't answer. Block, block. Every time it got easier. Monday morning, I went to work. It was my first official day in the new position I'd earned because of that degree, the one he couldn't be bothered to watch me receive. My boss met me at my desk with a grin and a stack of onboarding materials. "Congratulations, Aubrey," she said, both on the graduation and the promotion. The team had decorated my monitor with a paper graduation cap. There was cake in the break room. People clapped when I walked in. They asked about my speech. They told me how proud they were. It was the celebration I should have had with the person who'd shared my bed for 5 years. Instead, I got something better, a room full of people who showed up when they said they would. When I got home that night, there were no voicemails, but there was a notification from an app I hadn't thought about in years, an ancient messaging platform we'd used the first semester of grad school, before we swapped to 100 other things. From Logan. "Please, we need to talk. I made a mistake. Can we just talk in person?" I stared at the screen for a moment, feeling that old, familiar tug, the part of me that wanted to understand, to fix, to smooth over. Then I remembered the timestamp on his breakup text, 1:58 p.m. I remembered the way he'd stood in the kitchen that morning, arms crossed, asking if I really needed him there. I typed slowly. "No, pick up your stuff this week or I'm donating it." His reply came fast. "You're being cruel." "I'm being done," I wrote back. "There's a difference." Then I blocked him there too. On Wednesday, he escalated. I was at my desk when my phone buzzed with a text from my downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Kellerman, a retired teacher who knew everyone's business and pretended she didn't. "There's a man waiting outside your building," she wrote. "Says he's your boyfriend. Looks upset. Should I call someone?" I stared at the message for a second, jaw tight. "He's my ex," I replied. "Please don't worry. He'll leave eventually." He did. According to her, he stayed for 3 hours, sat on the steps, staring at the door like he could will me into appearing, checked his phone, stood up every time someone walked by, hope breaking across his face, then falling when he realized it wasn't me. Part of me felt a tiny, inconvenient pang for that version of him, the one who looked lost and small and nothing like the man who had detonated my graduation with a text. Most of me felt nothing. Thursday it happened again. By then, I'd started adjusting my routine, working late, going to the gym after, browsing in a bookstore, lingering over titles I didn't plan to buy, sitting in a coffee shop with my laptop long after I'd finished my drink, just so that when I finally drove home, the steps would be empty. That night, I didn't avoid it. Instead, I watched from a friend's apartment across the street. She offered a glass of wine and a sympathetic look as we stood behind the curtain and watched Logan sit there alone. We saw him pull something out of his pocket, a folded piece of paper maybe, or a photo, and stare at it for a long time. "You okay?" my friend asked quietly. "I'm fine," I said. I meant it. Friday was the first time I actually ran into him. My last meeting ran late. By the time I left the office, the sun was low and my brain was fried from too many spreadsheets and not enough oxygen. I drove home, parked in my usual spot, slung my gym bag over my shoulder, and headed toward the building entrance. He was there, sitting on the steps, hunched over, elbows on his knees. He stood up the second he saw me, like he'd been coiled this whole time waiting to spring. "Finally," he said, "I've been trying to talk to you for days." I didn't speed up, I didn't slow down, I just walked toward the door. "I have nothing to say to you," I said. "Please just give me 5 minutes." "You had 5 years," I said. "You threw it away via text during my graduation. I don't owe you 5 more minutes." "I was confused," he said, words tumbling over each other. "I was overwhelmed. You were so busy and I felt neglected and I didn't handle it well, okay?" "That's your explanation?" I asked. "You felt neglected, so you decided to nuke my life 2 minutes before I walked on stage." "I wasn't thinking," he protested. "I was hurt. I thought you'd fight for us." That sentence lodged in my chest like a splinter. "There it is," I said softly. "You didn't want to break up. You wanted a performance. You wanted me to chase you." "I wanted you to show you cared," he shot back. I took a breath, steady and slow. "I spent 18 months showing I cared," I said. "I cared enough about our future to exhaust myself for it. You felt neglected, and instead of talking to me like an adult, you ended things in the cruelest way you could think of. And now that I've taken you at your word and moved on, suddenly you want to rewind?" "Aubrey, please," he said, stepping closer. His voice cracked. "I made a mistake. I don't want to lose you. I love you. I believed him. That was the worst part. I believed that some part of him, standing there on the steps, really did love me, or at least the comfort of my presence. I believed he regretted the text. I believed he was scared. I also believed something else, that if I let him back in, This would happen again the next time life got hard. You know what's funny? I said. I believe you didn't mean it when you typed it. Not fully, but you meant it enough to send it. You meant it enough to time it for maximum damage. That tells me everything I need to know. Tears spilled over his lashes. Real ones, not the dramatic kind. I'd been with him long enough to know the difference. Please, he whispered. I love you. I do. And that was when I said the one sentence that changed his whole face. I signed a lease for a new apartment, I said. I move out in 2 weeks. Your stuff will be here until then. After that, I don't care what happens to it. The blood drained from his face. You're moving, he repeated, like the word itself was an insult. Yes. Where? None of your business. We live together, he said, voice pitching higher. You can't just move out. The lease is in my name, I reminded him. I gave notice yesterday. You're not on it, so you don't get a say. Where am I supposed to live? He demanded, panic rising. Again, I said, not my problem. You ended this. Figure it out. This is insane, he said. You're throwing away 5 years. No, I replied calmly. You did that on May 18th at 1:58 p.m. I'm just accepting reality. His mouth opened and closed, searching for something to say that would rewind time. I walked past him, opened the building door, and stepped inside. He tried to follow, but I pulled the door shut before he could catch it. His palm hit the glass with a dull thud. Through the thin metal and glass, I could hear him saying my name, pounding, pleading. I climbed the stairs, unlocked my apartment, and closed the door behind me. Then I did something I hadn't done in days. I exhaled. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was sad. Sadness requires a softness I no longer had. But because my mind kept whirring like an engine that couldn't shut off. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Logan on those steps, panic-stricken, like he'd only just realized that consequences were real. By morning, something inside me felt settled. Not healed, not whole, just decided. That feeling carried me through the weekend. Saturday, I woke up early, grabbed a stack of boxes, and began packing. With the kind of methodical precision I normally reserved for reorganizing spreadsheets, birth certificates, tax documents, winter clothes, kitchen staples, I sorted everything into neat categories: keep, donate, trash, storage. Each box felt like a small act of reclaiming the apartment and myself from the shadow of what had been us. He emailed that morning. I hadn't thought to block him there yet. The subject line was nothing dramatic, just my name. Inside was a wall of text. Apologies, explanations, a disjointed essay about being stressed, insecure, overwhelmed. He wrote about wanting me to fight for him, how he thought me being busy meant I didn't care, how he said the breakup text in a moment of frustration. I read exactly 2 sentences. Then I closed the email. Then I wrote back. I listened to you when you told me you don't love me. I listened when you said goodbye. I am honoring your choice. Stop contacting me. Then I blocked him and set up a filter so anything sent from his address would auto-delete. Gone. Like it never existed. That afternoon, he left something at my door. When I opened the front door to grab a package, I found a gift bag sitting on the mat. Heavy, stuffed full. Inside were letters, printed photos, handwritten notes, ticket stubs from every concert we'd gone to in our 20s, a scrapbook with the cover labeled Aubrey plus Logan, Our Story. Previously, that might have broken me. The version of me from 6 months ago would have sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through each page, tears dripping onto glossy images of our smiling faces. She would have clung to the nostalgia like a life raft, convinced that love meant fighting through the hurt to rescue whatever remained. But the woman standing there now felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no regret. Just clarity. I put the entire bag, scrapbook, photos, memories, straight into the building's trash chute. The thunk it made when it dropped into the metal bin below was oddly satisfying. Later that day, I drafted a formal email to my landlord explaining the situation. He called within the hour. I expected bureaucracy or indifference. Instead, he sounded relieved. "Oh God, Logan," he said. "Yeah, I've seen him around the building, pacing. I figured something was going on. Listen, if you want to move out sooner, I can waive the fees." "Seriously?" I asked. "Absolutely. And if he shows up again and makes you uncomfortable, I'll contact the police on your behalf." I hadn't expected empathy or accommodation, or the validation that came from someone acknowledging that what I was dealing with wasn't normal. I took the offer. My move-out date went from 2 weeks to 5 days. I scheduled movers for Friday, booked a short-term rental across town, smaller than my current apartment, but safer. Anonymous. Mine. Sunday came with a storm. Literal storm. Wind, rain, thunder cracking like bones. I stayed inside, packing the rest of my things. I didn't turn on music, didn't turn on the TV, just taped boxes shut, one after another, each one sealing another chapter. Around noon, someone knocked on my door. I didn't move. They knocked again, and again. "Aubrey," a voice called. "Aubrey, it's me." I stayed silent, fixed my eyes on the wall. I wasn't giving him the satisfaction of hearing me move. "Aubrey, please open the door," he said, voice trembling. "We need to talk. You can't do this." The knocking grew louder, then slower, then softer. Eventually, it stopped. My phone buzzed. I didn't look, didn't care. Monday morning, I went to the leasing office to drop off a form. When I came back, another bag sat outside my door. This one was drenched from the rain, its contents clumped together, another attempt at sentimentality destroyed by water and weather. I threw it out without opening it. By Tuesday, he escalated again. This time, he brought reinforcements. I heard them before I saw them. Muffled voices in the hall, one firm and maternal, the other frayed and familiar. "Aubrey," his mother called. "Honey, can we talk to you?" I froze on the couch, heart thrumming but body still. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "this is Logan's mom. We just want to make sure you're okay. Can you open the door?" Logan knocked next. "Aubrey, please, I'm begging you. Just 5 minutes." I didn't move. "Maybe she's not home," his mother murmured. "She's here," Logan whispered back. "Her shoes are by the door. I know she's here." I clenched my jaw. His mother tried again, voice strained with that tired compassion I used to mistake for kindness. "Please, honey. You two can talk this out. 5 years is a long time. He's hurting." Hurting. That word struck something cold inside me. He was hurting now. But what about me? Where was this empathy when he stood in our kitchen, arms crossed, dismissing my achievements? Where was this concern when he hit send at 1:58 p.m., shattering 5 years with a sentence? I didn't answer. After 15 minutes, I heard his mother sigh. "He's not home," she said. "Let's go." Their footsteps retreated down the hall. When the elevator dinged, I allowed myself to breathe again. By Wednesday, I had only 1 day left in the apartment. The movers were coming at 8 the next morning. My things were neatly stacked and labeled. My new apartment keys sat on the counter. I felt like a ghost wandering through the remnants of a life I no longer claimed. That night, another knock at the door. I ignored it. Thursday morning, I opened the door to find a final attempt from him. A cardboard box with a ribbon taped sloppily on top. No note this time. No explanation. Just silence. I didn't open it. Didn't bring it inside. I carried it straight to the trash chute and let gravity make the decision for me. Friday arrived quietly. The movers came early, worked fast, and by 11 the apartment was empty. Their footsteps echoed across the bare floor. The place looked smaller with nothing in it, stripped of all the accumulated years, all the shared routines, all the illusions I'd mistaken for security. I left the keys with the landlord, walked out without looking back, and drove across town to my new place. Before I turned off my old phone, the one Logan still knew, I sent him one last message from a number he wouldn't recognize. "Your belongings are in storage unit 247 at Oak Street Storage. Code 4832. Paid through the end of the month. After that, it's your responsibility." Then I blocked that number too, tossed the SIM card into a drawer, and stepped into the quiet of my new apartment. For the first time in days, weeks, maybe months, I felt peace. The first night in my new apartment felt strange in a way I didn't expect. Not lonely, not sad, just quiet. A kind of quiet I'd forgotten was possible. No shoes by the door that weren't mine. No half-drunk protein shake on the counter. No background hum of someone else's routine tugging against mine. The silence felt like a warm bath, unsettling at first, then soothing, then necessary. I unpacked slowly, one box at a time. My things, my choices, my placement. No compromises. I didn't check my phone once. No part of me wondered whether Logan had tried to call or text or show up at the old apartment. It wasn't my concern anymore. I'd given him the only information he was entitled to, a storage unit number and a deadline. Everything else, my address, my routines, my peace, was no longer accessible to him. I slept that night the way I used to sleep before I learned what it felt like to be responsible for someone else's emotional weather. Deep, uninterrupted, mine. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight instead of dread. My new apartment had big windows, tall rectangular wells of brightness that poured light onto the hardwood floors. I made coffee and stood barefoot by the glass, watching the street below. No one knew I lived here except my family and two close friends. It felt like witness protection for my emotional life. I got ready for work without tiptoeing around another person's schedule. I put on a playlist he always hated, soft indie songs that made me feel like things were okay even when they weren't. I took the long way to the office just because the weather was nice. At my desk, my boss stopped by. Aubrey, I forgot to tell you yesterday. Leadership loved your work on the predictive models. They're considering you for a project lead position next quarter. I blinked at her. A promotion already? She smiled. Don't look so shocked. You earned it. And that was the moment I realized something sharp and painful. Logan never said anything like that to me. Not once in 5 years. He'd said he was proud sometimes, but it was always attached to a but. I'm proud of you, but I miss us. I'm proud of you, but this is getting ridiculous. I'm proud of you, but you're never home. Support with conditions, pride with strings, encouragement only when it didn't inconvenience him. Here at work, where no one loved me or lived with me or knew my childhood stories, I was valued without clauses. It was both beautiful and devastating. Over the next 2 weeks, my life shifted into a new shape. Not a perfect shape, not a triumphant victory, just something stable, mine, quiet enough that I could hear my own thoughts again. My friends invited me to dinner one night. We sat on a rooftop bar with mismatched chairs and overpriced cocktails. They didn't ask about Logan until I brought him up, and when I told them the whole story, no one said, "Have you tried talking to him?" Instead, they said things like, "That was cruel. You didn't deserve that. I'm so glad you chose yourself." One of them, a friend of a friend, looked at me and said, "I'm proud of you." And she meant it. By the third week, Logan escalated again. This time, he tried to go through mutual friends. 3 different people texted me variations of the same message. Logan is really struggling. He feels awful about what happened. He wants closure. He didn't mean to hurt you. Can you just give him 5 minutes? I answered each message with the same copy-paste clarity. He ended a 5-year relationship via text 2 minutes before my graduation ceremony. I have nothing more to say to him. Please don't pass along messages. 2 people understood. The third, one of his closest friends, sent back a paragraph that started with, "You're being heartless," and ended with, "Everyone makes mistakes." I replied with exactly 1 sentence. He didn't just make a mistake, he made a decision. And I didn't hear from that friend again. The quiet of my new life was interrupted only once more by him. It was a Wednesday, 3 weeks after I moved out, when security at my office called. "There's a man downstairs saying he needs to see you," the guard said. "Claims he's your boyfriend." I closed my eyes. "He's not," I said. "Please ask him to leave." "He's refusing, says it's urgent." "Then call the police." There was a pause. Yes, ma'am." He left before the police arrived, but not before causing enough of a scene that 2 coworkers approached me later, asking if everything was okay. I didn't hide it. "My ex is having trouble respecting boundaries," I said. "We're handling it." My boss invited me into her office later that afternoon. "Do you feel safe?" she asked gently. "Yes," I said, and I meant it. Because safety, I'd learned, wasn't about where I lived or who I blocked. It was about the decision I made the moment I typed, "understood." It was about choosing myself. The following week, the messages from mutual friends stopped entirely. Logan finally gave up. Not gracefully, not with understanding, just with exhaustion. He told people I'd changed, that I'd gone cold, that I'd acted like he never mattered. And what no one would ever tell him to his face was the truth. I didn't change. I stopped bending. I stopped apologizing. I stopped bleeding for someone who used my love as a measuring stick for his ego. 6 weeks after graduation, I stood in the middle of my small, sunlit apartment and realized I was happy. Not ecstatic, not in love, not suddenly healed. Just peacefully, quietly, still. I had 2 degrees, a career that was finally taking shape, a promotion on the horizon, friends who showed up, family who'd flown across the country to celebrate me, a space that was entirely my own, and a heart that, though bruised, was undeniably mine again. Someone asked me recently, on a casual date that ended with a polite hug and no expectations, if I missed him. I answered honestly. "No," I said. "I miss who I thought he was, but the person who sent that text, I don't miss him at all." And I meant every word. Logan told me to consider this goodbye. He expected me to fall apart. He expected me to fight for him. He expected me to orbit his gravity the way I had for years. Instead, I considered it. I agreed, and it was the best decision I ever made.